Do you encounter people that don't believe in this?
Yes, all the time.
And what do you say to them? Or what do you believe?
For ghost-wise, I say more of, okay, if you think about your body as energy, think about your heart, it even has electrical fields, energy. And it's scientific proof that energy cannot be destroyed or made. So when you pass, you've got energy in your body. So some people, like I said, there's heaven, other dimensions, there's different things that, different cultures and religions believe. So wherever you believe that goes, that's part of where it goes, like your soul.
It felt like someone was about to walk right in my door.
It was unrecognizable.
And she just saw it out of the corner of her eye and somebody just run across.
I am truly frightened by ghosts and I don't like to be in the dark by myself.
So I turned around and looked, and he wasn't sitting there, and there was nobody there. It was just me.
It was around 3:30 in the morning. We were engaged in some serious conversation, and the conversation kind of became at a lull, became very quiet. I noticed myself getting very tired, and we hear a mysterious, angry, heavy sigh in the near distance, and there was no one here. The lights were off everywhere, besides in the little corridor common area where we were sitting. My name is Lacey Coburn. I work here at Aptera as a cloud infrastructure project manager. I've been here a little over a year, and my basic job duties are orchestrating a project from the beginning and overseeing it to the end.
I'm Rob Sandoz, and I'm the QA practice lead at Aptera. And I've worked here for 2.5 years. I used to sit at the other end of the building, and now I sit here at the corner by the stairwell.
Did anything happen when you sat in the other corner?
No, I sat similar with my back facing the room a little bit to the back wall of the windows there, but Matt Nodwell got us moved because he had to complain about something, which I'm still mad about. Here's the window, and I'll be sitting at my computer here like this, and like I said, I could feel that somebody had come up the stairs, and so as I was working, I look up and I see somebody walking behind me, and I was like, "Hey, Tex." I turn around because he didn't answer, and I look, and there's just nobody there. I stood up to look at his desk, and there was nobody. I sat back down and said, "Oh, crap, that was one of those moments."
My name is Amber Middleton. My position is project manager for the web team.
And how long have you worked here?
I've been at Aptera for 3 years. So she had come in early one day, and it actually was a really bad blizzard that day. So a lot of the building was completely empty, and I was online with instant message in front of me that morning, but I was at home. I didn't try and fight the storm to come into work, but she not only fought the storm to come to work, but she got here early, and as a result, she was the only person in the building. So that morning, she was in the basement, and she got pretty freaked out because she swore that she saw somebody just run across her office in the basement. She just saw it out of the corner of her eye, and somebody just run across. And so she started IMing everyone on the team, and everyone on the team, was just teasing her because she thought that a burglar was here or something. And she was IMing us comments about how nobody else was here for her and the burglar was going to come and murder her, and she was scared. But in all the joking aside, if you piece that together with a lot of the other stories, it actually could have related to something paranormal happening.
I'll get here at about 5:30 to 6 in the morning sometimes, and whenever I'm here that early, it always sounds like someone else is right behind me, and that like, oh, someone else just got in too, and it sounds like a set of footsteps just kind of walking through the main area, and there'll be no one else here, and it's gotten to the point now where I don't like coming in here by myself. Sometimes there's other guys here this early, and if I'm the first one here by myself, I might wait like 5 minutes to see if anyone else shows up, so I don't have to walk in. This was a typical day for me where I like to come in early, kind of be by myself, not be bothered with phone calls or emails, and just kind of get to work. Typical morning at Aptera. I've had plenty of these. It was just this specific morning that something really threw me off of, whoa, I may not be the only one down here in this basement. I've been working at Aptera for about 4 years. I'm the graphic designer here.
So you actually avoid coming in at those times?
I will admit it does cross my mind. There was a couple times I've got up to come to work at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I've actually considered it. Considered not coming in at that time because I'm a little scared that it just would ruin my whole day.
You ever walk into a movie theater and it's completely empty, and there's almost, you can feel the air pressure of, oh, I'm the only one here. And you didn't have to look at all the other seats, but you just knew that you were the only one there. It feels like that sometimes, but then there's these other times where I walk in here, and especially that time when I saw something walk right by my door, it didn't feel like I was the only one here. Up until this point, I was like, there's no ghost stories, there's nothing, but I don't know. I guess anything's possible. There might be some supernatural things that I can't see in this dimension, and something else is happening here that my senses can't pick up on, but yet I feel energy, vibrations, and something like that. So I don't know. I'm kind of convinced that there might be something going on here just because there's too many smoking guns, as they say.
It was a sigh, like, and there was a heavy, like, breath at the end. It was very clear. I reacted. I had goosebumps. I had chills. Hair on the back of my neck at that time was standing. I became instantly awakened, heart racing, definitely adrenaline filled, as I was about to just maybe think about getting a blanket and maybe taking a nap instead of driving home. And immediately I said, let's go, I'm out of here, walk me to my car.
Going all the way back to 2008, when Aptera first moved into the building at 201 West Main Street, there have been all kinds of lurid rumors floating around about things that have gone on within these walls. Nearly every Aptera employee has heard that the building was at various times in its history a mortuary, a Prohibition-era speakeasy, and a brothel. Oh yeah, and apparently, if you believe the rumors, someone was stabbed to death here. And that, if you believe in that sort of stuff, could be the source of the unexplained phenomenon witnessed by Aptera employees. Back in late August of this year, 3 of us, Aptera employees, Raul Perez, Dennis Junk, and myself, James Swihart, decided to research the building's history so we could determine whether there was any substance to the rumors. We kicked off our project by interviewing several of our coworkers to find out what they'd heard about the building, and to find out whether they'd ever experienced or heard anything that may suggest a haunting. Over the course of these interviews, the three of us decided that at some point we would have to spend the night at the Aptera headquarters to see for ourselves what goes on in the wee hours of the night. But before we get to what happened on the ghost hunt, let's check out some history. The building at 201 West Main Street was originally constructed in 1867 by Mary Ewing. The construction of what would be called Ewing Hall was funded by a bequest from Mary's late husband, George W. Ewing. The Ewings were a prominent and extremely wealthy family in Fort Wayne, and you probably recognize the name since there's a Ewing Street just 2 blocks west of Aptera. The hall went on to host a variety of high society events. The first tragedy struck the building even before construction was completed. George K. Hill and Peter Masterson were standing side by side, 35 feet on a scaffolding, as they worked on painting the east side of the building. For some unknown reason, a hook that was supporting the plank they were standing on broke and both men plummeted to the street below. Peter Masterson was severely injured, and George Cahill was killed almost instantly. In 1898, the building was purchased by the Klain family, who, it turns out, were in the funeral business. So this was the first rumor we were able to confirm. From the final years of the 19th century until 1924, our building was home to the Klain Family Funeral Home. This is another name you may recognize, since the Klain Fall Melton Funeral Home is still in operation today and now resides at 420 West Wayne Street, right across from Trinity English Lutheran Church. In 1924, the Klains family sold the building to Simon Epstein. It then became the Epstein Company. Out of all the records that we could search, we found no tradable goods or services coming out of this address. This is our best candidate for the speakeasy. Prohibition was from 1920 to 1933. But of course, there are no records that would prove our suspicions definitively. After Simon Epstein sold the building in 1938, it went through several decades as a hardware store, a plumbing supply store, a haberdashery, that's a clothing store, and a furniture store. It also remained vacant off and on for many years. Then, in 1968, it was taken over by the Klein Richard brothers, who turned the building into the famous nightclub known to everyone of that era as the Cat's Meow. This club was the venue for many celebrity performers including Little Richard, Fats Domino, Tina Turner, and Chubby Checker. We were actually fortunate enough to be able to talk to Joe Klein Richard over the phone. Currently at age 75, he lives in Traverse City, Michigan. One of the interesting facts we picked up from him is that the building originally had 2 more floors than it does today, for a total of 5 floors when you include the basement. The Klein Richards, in fact, were the ones who had to have the top 2 floors removed because they were making the building structurally unstable. The top 2 floors were apartments for a very long time, and Mr. Klein Richard corroborated the rumors we'd heard that the building had been, in his terms, a cat house. He even had stories about famous prostitutes who hung out on the Main Street area, women with names like Dirty Gertie, Big Mary, and Tanya Tunnabuns. Yes, I said Tanya Tunnabuns. But he insisted to us that he and his brothers never allowed anything like that to happen in their own club, the famous Cat's Meow. He even expressed with great frustration about the rumors of the Cat's Meow being a strip club. The Klein Richards actually owned 6 clubs at the time, and according to Joe, the Cat's Meow was their classy joint. But we got some conflicting stories on this point. There are records that attest to the fact that there were burlesque shows at the Cat's Meow, but how much nudity was involved will remain a matter of dispute.
In the early 1980s, the Klein Richards sold the Cat's Meow, and it became 2 other nightclubs in close succession. First it was the Roxy, and then it was Garfield's. Then it was vacant for several years until it was bought by the Ash Brokerage Corporation. That was the last time it traded hands before T.K. Herman and Conrad Ahinger decided to make it the headquarters for Aptera in 2008.
By the time we spoke to Joe Klein Richard, we'd already found quite a bit of information bearing on the rumor about the stabbing that occurred in the building. From old newspaper articles, we learned that in fact it hadn't been a stabbing but rather a shooting. In 1971, Ronald Whitey Lew stood trial for second-degree murder. The charge stemmed from an incident that occurred in the early morning hours of January the 8th, 1970. Earlier that night on January the 7th, a man named William White Jr. had entered another one of the clubs owned by the Klein Richards, the Tip Top, which was right across the street from the Cat's Meow. White, not to be confused with Whitey, was apparently in a rage because a waitress he was infatuated with had started dating another man. After causing a commotion at the Tip Top, and after threatening to kill Joe Klein Richard, White was kicked out, but by all accounts his rampage continued. According to Joe Klein Richard, White at some point that night pistol-whipped a waitress at another club, and he later stabbed a man on the shoulder, an incident which may have been the source of the rumor we heard about the stabbing death. Mr. Klein Richard also told us that White had taken an entire handful of LSD sometime that night, and witnesses at Ron Lew's trial described White as acting like a madman or a mad dog. Lew, who everyone called Whitey, had been working at the Tip Top on the night of the 7th. After getting off work there, he accompanied Joe Klein Richard, his friend and boss, over to the Cat's Meow for a few after-work drinks. The doors on the Main Street side of the club locked automatically whenever someone exited through them, But sometime after 2:30 on January the 8th, William White snuck through the doors after a member of the band that had performed that night left through them.
At 2:40 a.m. on January the 8th, 1970, William White bursts through those doors holding a knife, pushes a band member up against the coat rack and holds a knife to his throat, and continues moving forward.
Ron White is sitting at the bar with Joe Kleinrichard. He'd just come over from the Tip Top. He sees William White coming through the doors, turns, walks out on the floor. He tells everybody who's still in the bar at that time to get behind him and to move behind the bar when he goes out to confront William White. They have a confrontation of some sort. They're spitting. He's swinging the knife around. At one point, Ron Lew decides, I don't want to mess with this, walks back over here, back to where Joe Kleinrichard is behind the bar. Joe hands him a .38 revolver. Ron comes back, drapes a coat over his shoulder so that William White can't see the gun. He doesn't want to start a gunfight. Comes out here, and this is when it happens. Something's going on. They're having some type of altercation. There's a commotion. We don't know. At some point, he lifts the gun, shoots him. William White is hit right in the chest, punctures his aorta. He probably fell about right here, and he bled to death. He was DOA when he got to St. Joe Hospital, but he probably died in a pool of blood right here on the floor.
Which means he died in this building. But there are a couple of weird things about the shooting. For one, the coroner's report has the knife folded up in White's pocket, so when Whitey shot him, he was no longer brandishing the weapon. It's possible that he put the knife away while Whitey was getting the gun from Kleinrichard behind the bar, but it's strange that at that moment, Whitey actually pulled the trigger. White must have presented much less of an immediate threat to anyone's life. Whitey was officially acquitted of the murder charge in May of 1971, and afterward he accepted a job in Florida for a while. Tragically, however, almost a year later to the day, he was found not guilty on May 10, 1972. Ron Lew died of cirrhosis of the liver. He was only 32. Physicians we have spoken to say that for someone to drink himself to death at that age is extremely rare. Today, you can see a black and white picture of Whitey on his headstone in the Catholic Cemetery on Lake Avenue, here in Fort Wayne. After finding out there was a shooting on our building, we decided to go to Prairie Grove Cemetery to find the final resting place of the victim in our story. After searching for 20 minutes, we realized we could have never found his grave without the help of the cemetery's caretaker, Howdy. William C. White being buried in an unmarked grave in the corner of Prairie Grove Cemetery. Being very helpful and making several trips to the office, or barn as Howdy called it, he was able to produce the cemetery maps from many years ago, along with the burial card of William White. Howdy was very gracious and used the tool they use in the cemetery to locate vaults. After 25 minutes of probing the ground, he found the void between the three graves and locating William White's final resting place. After finding William White's grave with the help of Howdy, we decided to go to the Catholic Cemetery to find Ron Lew.
They've all got their stuff together. Everything is databased and cataloged very well. It was pretty much, he typed his name into a computer, gave me the map, and told me exactly where to go. Not like, let me go get a probe and a tractor and we'll see if we can't dig up Willie.
How did this cemetery experience compare to the last one?
Well, considering nobody had to take her femur, it was pretty good.
Has there been a femur taking story in your life?
Yeah, okay, so when we went and found William White's grave, we came across the caretaker of the cemetery, who his first words when he jumped out of the tractor is he pointed at me and went, "Hey, I know you." I went, "Ah!" I went, where you work? I told him who I've worked for previously. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I know those guys." I'm like, "Oh cool, I got an in, guys. We're gonna find him." We were talking, he was talking about actually how he worked at this Catholic cemetery, because this is where the story actually took place.
Oh, that's right,
and
yeah.
They had to actually, I'm gonna shut the window because it's just too good of a story. They had to dig up a hooker who was buried in a welfare casket.
No, what did he call her? He didn't call her a hooker. It was like a lady of the night. Lady of ill repute or something like that.
Yeah, lady of the night, night walker. So we call those vampires. So 17 years, and pretty much they had to, we had to dig her up once. Because she didn't have any teeth. They had to take some bone. Then we put her back in the ground. And a month later, we had to dig her back up again. This time we had to take the whole femur. Why is that, sir? Well, it's because we didn't have enough DNA. See, she didn't have any teeth, like I was telling you.
Just a toothless hooker.
Yeah, toothless hooker with dentures, I hope. And then it was pretty much, it went down the storyline of, well, she was buried in a welfare casket, which is pretty much just a vault with a cardboard. But she was just bone by the time we got there.
Well, he was kind of appalled by that. He told us that in his mind, everybody deserves a nice, marble vault.
I know, and he was a decent human being. He was basically saying that how, even if you got no money, even if you got no family, everybody should be buried in a decent casket. Which means you're working a Sunday.
Tell him howdy, said.
Tell him howdy, said he.
So why was he called Howdy?
He was called Howdy because apparently in his younger days he had red hair, freckles, and big ears. Now it's gray, freckles, and ears didn't look too bad. I doubt anybody at our company would know who Howdy Doody is. Everybody knows Happy the Hobo, right? Had to take his femur too.
The three of us, Raul, Dennis, and James, invited Curtis Nash and his team of amateur ghost hunters to investigate the building on the night of October 16th. Nash had been one of Dennis's classmates at IPFW, and Dennis, that's me, remembered him discussing investigations of reported hauntings in the past. Before the ghost hunters arrived that night, though, we did some investigating of our own, and we got quite a bit of footage. The ghost hunters' methods were relatively basic. They directed a camera on a tripod at the area where the activity seemed to center. We chose to have them point to the spot where William White likely bled to death. To highlight any movement that occurred, they directed an array of laser lights to cover the scene, producing a scatter of green dots all over the floor and walls. Then we broke into teams and moved into different parts of the building. In each area, we called out to whatever spirits might be listening, encouraging them to communicate with us. In addition to several audio recording devices, they also had bells protected from the wind by clear plastic, and they said it was also common for the ghost to actually make physical contact with them. One of them, for instance, recently had his hat knocked off by an invisible presence.
Did you used to work in the building? People see you walking around. Do you want to tell us your name? You come to work early in the morning? Is that why they see you around?
After several hours calling out to the dark and receiving no response, Raul, Dennis, and James grew increasingly disappointed. When we'd arrived earlier that night and wandered through the building in the dark, we all agreed the place was really freaking creepy. But the longer we stayed without witnessing any strange occurrences, the less frightening the place seemed to us. By the time the ghost hunters were packing up their equipment, we all three felt perfectly comfortable in the darkened building. Raul had even fallen asleep at one point. Our disappointment intensified a few days later when Nash informed us that reviewing the video and audio recordings from that night had turned up nothing. Bupkis. So, as we entered the initial editing phase for this project, we were all a little dispirited, if you'll pardon the pun. We did have one unexplained phenomenon to focus on, but there was disagreement about its importance. While hanging out in the basement, we had all three heard what sounded very distinctly like footsteps heading from the front entrance upstairs and heading toward the pool table. The best theory we had to explain the sound was that it was caused by cars passing through the intersection just outside the building. We decided to conduct an experiment.
And right now we're just kind of trying to debunk the fact that it might be cars passing by. So Raul is in the basement by himself, and he's been there for about 15 minutes by himself. And we are actually stationary in the parking lot of Aptera. You can tell that we're not moving. So we're gonna make a call, and we're gonna tell Raul that we're actually driving around and see if he hears the same kind of footsteps to make sure that it's not a car. And right now we can see the road, so there are no cars passing. So go ahead and make the call. You got a speakerphone?
Probably, I don't know how to work it though.
Are you kidding me?
Whoever does that?
I do all the time.
Okay, Raul, we're going to be coming up in front of the building here pretty soon. So, you're going to go stand right outside Justin's office? Okay, we're coming up on it, so let us know if you hear something. Okay, right there. Anything?
Tell him there's a line of cars behind us. Does he hear anything now?
There's a line of cars behind us. You did hear it? Okay, stay there. We're gonna whip around again.
You say when you hear us.
Okay.
I'm gonna drive really freaking slow.
Okay. Just hit every pothole.
Yeah. There's a pothole. There's a pothole. This one looks deeper. I'll hit this one.
Hit it kind of fast.
Here's a pothole. My suspension is gone.
Just dump the tranny. All right.
He didn't hear us. He didn't hear us. He didn't hear a damn thing. It's not a car.
Okay.
All right, Raul. We got it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Raul. Bye. All right. I'm going to call it.
The mystery of the footsteps was interesting, but we'd all hoped for something more substantive. Then one night, while staying late to do some editing by himself, Raul came across a mysterious sound on one of our own clips from the night of the ghost hunt. It occurred on the main floor as the ghost hunters were setting up the camera and the laser array. Keep in mind that everyone agreed at the outset to avoid making any sounds that could be mistaken for a spirit trying to communicate. All night, whenever anyone jangled her keys or bumped his elbow into a table, that person would say out loud, "That was me." What Raul discovered, however, is unmistakably the sound of someone whispering. After accounting for the location of everyone present in an attempt to figure out who it was, we realized that the voice doesn't sound anything like the only two people it could have been. And just like that, his excitement notwithstanding, Raul was suddenly aware again that he was alone in the building, and he was freaked out. After playing and replaying the clip countless times, the three of us believe the whisper says either, "It's dark in here," or "Get out of here." Again, we have something that's suggestive, but obviously not definitive. The next night, though, it was James's and Dennis's turn to sift through footage of the ghost hunt, and they discovered two more strange occurrences, both of which we'd actually perceived on that night, but the fact that they'd turned up on the recordings made them seem even more inexplicable and even more frightening. The first occurrence was on the second floor, as Raul filmed James and Dennis discussing the building's history.
I cannot remember if the cat's meow was
I heard it too, but it could have been the fan.
We all heard what sounded like heavy footsteps coming up the back stairwell. We later had to dismiss Raul's first thought that it was the ventilation fan kicking on, because the fan turned on and off several times during the night, and we never heard that particular sound again. The second occurrence was also on the second floor, as James stood on the ladder up to the hatch opening onto the roof. He was about to start discussing the 2 extra floors the building once had, while Dennis and Raul childishly teased him about being able to see up his skirt, when both Dennis and James himself heard something.
Because we're looking right up your skirt.
No. Ones that like to party like no underwear. I mean, you can definitely tell where this.
I heard that too. I don't know what it was. I thought it was
with you.
After listening to the clip countless times, we agreed it sounds very much like a woman whispering, though we can't make out what precisely she's saying. What makes this especially creepy is that at the time the shot took place, there were no women in the building. After making these discoveries, Raul and James were once more reluctant to be in the building alone at night. As for Dennis, that's me, I admit these things are pretty strange, but I remain skeptical.
What are we talking about here? You're saying basically they killed Willie White. It was unjustified. They just wanted to kill him because they didn't like him.
I never said that. I just said I think he was shot by accident.
And he didn't have a knife. And a year later, Ron Liu died, or 2 years later, because there was the trial 1 year later. Then the next year after that, he dies, cirrhosis of the liver, 32. So apparently he was so guilty, or maybe Willie White was haunting him, and he just couldn't take it anymore, so he just drinks himself to death. And then all this time later, Willie White's in the building right now. He's in our heads. So he gets us doing this project, and he possesses Howdy. Is that what you're saying?
No.
So Howdy jumps off the tractor and says, "I know you," and then all of a sudden he's like, "I'm going to show you where this guy lives."
No, but I'm not saying Howdy, but what put it in our head to go out there on that day? I mean, it's just too coincidental.
And it's also the way he died a year later. It's not like he just of natural causes.
We just
he drank himself to death.
Well, alcohol's natural.
I'm not saying possession because that's too creepy. That's like Exorcist type crap.
But
it's too coincidental. Everything with this guy has been too coincidental that we just randomly go out to the cemetery where he's buried to get one photo. We can't find him. The one guy knows me.
He shows us everything of where he's supposed to be. Takes like 45 minutes.
It's interesting. It's unlikely, but you're saying it's
every
too much of a coincidence, but it's not possession. So he influenced him in some way. What did he influence him when he was digging up the prostitute and taking out her femur?
Well, no, because that was an actual case that they had to use DNA evidence to, find somebody.
Yeah, and he told us that story while I was there. So it's like, I don't know. Like, it just seems like it could be this, it could be this, it could be a lot of different things. Just going on what the evidence is, it's not that crazy. It's not that out there.
So you're fine with everything. So you don't think anything was weird? Nothing was weird?
No, a lot of this, like, a guy got killed here. I mean, it's kind of weird.
Does that freak you out?
Working here late at night, would you feel safe?
I think so. I mean, people die in every building, in every house. I mean, I live in West Central. Every one of those houses probably has
Nobody
crazy
died in my
stuff.
house, Raul. Well, probably your house, Raul.
What's going on?
Well, he's got an old house.
So, no, I don't.
My house was built in '68. I don't think anybody died in my house.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see. You hear it's dark. You're by yourself. Now that you know it was like a murder up there, you hear the stories. It's kind of creepy, but no, nothing's really happening here.
So, after everything, and all the research, and all the footsteps, and all the voices, and all the sightings people have seen, you're fine being here by yourself? Like, you think it's all BS?
Yeah, I don't believe in
Not
this
even a little
stuff.
bit?
I don't believe in this stuff.
I'll tell you what, man. It's after dark now. I got things to do. You with me?
Hey, man, I've put a lot of time into this
No,
project.
it's cool.
I got stuff I can do right now.
If you're not scared, if you're not scared, dude, I'm gone.
All right,
I'm out.
Hey, I got work to do. I can do it.
Good luck.
It's not a problem.
Have fun.
Yep, and I'll tell you guys how I finish this blog post in the morning when you come back. No big deal.
I'm gonna take your femur.
Seriously, man, you're not scared at all?
I mean, not really.
But there was a murder in the building.
Yeah, but it still doesn't mean anything.
I told you he was scared.
Yep.